Hello, this is Tuesday Talks, and I'm very happy to welcome you again this week to our program. Today, I am pleased to welcome Gary Gatzke. Gary lives in Traverse City, and he is the principal bass player not only of the Great Lakes Chamber Orchestra, but also of the Traverse Symphony Orchestra. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you, Judy. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, it's so nice to see you. It has been a while, that's for sure. Gary, I understand that you are from Traverse City, a native of Traverse City, born and raised and went to school. Maybe you can just share a little bit of that with us.
Sure. As you said, I'm born and raised in Traverse City, and my musical experiences and education in Traverse City started in the Traverse City area public school system. I'm a huge believer in our public education system, and was able to develop and grow as a musician under the fabulous teachers of the time to become a better first violinist, then cellist, and then double bass. So I actually started in the fifth grade on violin and then moved up to the cello in sixth grade. And at that time, the structure of the junior high or middle school was starting in the seventh grade. And that was when I got the opportunity to try the double bass. And from there, it was the beginning of a lifelong relationship with the double bass.
Passion, passion. Now, let me just interrupt for a second. At that time, are there smaller double basses then? And
There
is that
are.
what you start on?
Sure. At that time, I believe I was age 11 or
Yeah,
so.
that's pretty young.
Yeah, would have played on a half-size bass.
Okay.
So standard sizing for bass in the professional world is a three-quarter bass. So really, I didn't have to move up to an even larger instrument. So starting on the half-size bass proved, an easy step once I went to the three-quarter size, and that happened within a year.
I was just going to ask you, how long are you on that half-size bass then?
Yeah, just 1 year.
Wow.
And the smaller the instrument, typically the strings themselves are the same strings we would use on a three-quarter instrument, and it doesn't uh, well, the gauge of the string is the same, and it just doesn't apply very well. So the sound of a smaller instrument cannot be uh, as bright and beautiful as the three-quarter size, or even a 7/8, which is slightly larger.
Right. Well, you have mentioned something that so many of our musicians have talked about, and that is that they began their music training in the public school and through the public school program. And it is so wonderful to hear that that has been such a strong influence in so many musicians' lives, and you too.
Absolutely. And, even before starting the violin in fifth grade, that we had a general music teacher in the Traverse City area public schools by the name of William Hayes. And he was a general music teacher, but also a jazz musician. And one day he brought his double bass to class,
Oh.
and he allowed various students to come up and pluck strings. And I knew from that point, I'm like, this instrument's going to be in my life at some point.
I
So
love it. I love it. Well, being right in Traverse City, guess what? You became involved in Interlochen, didn't you?
I did. So in the first year of double bass playing, I, along with a fellow colleague in the seventh grade orchestra, received phone calls from Interlochen's All-State program, which was a 2-week long program run through the University of Michigan, but on site at Interlochen. They needed bass players. So they opened up the opportunity for me and my fellow orchestra player to come out each day and do the orchestra rehearsals and master classes and studio classes and enjoy the camp experience as an invitation for free, which was delightful.
Wow.
So that started my relationship with Interlochen. 2 years later, we made the investment to go to the All-State program, another 2-week long program in my ninth grade year. And at the end of each session, Interlochen Arts Camp provided a scholarship to one individual in the orchestra. And I had witnessed this in my 7th grade year, and it went to a double bassist who was really, taking the world by storm. And I thought, well, that's neat. And that 9th grade year, our principal oboist, who was just a knockout player, I thought, oh my goodness, she's going to get it. And even before the concert, I said, you know what, I'll bet you're going to get that scholarship. You're pretty good. Well, it came to the end of the concert, and out came a presenter from the administration for the Interlochen Arts Camp, and lo and behold, it was me.
Gary Gatzke.
It was. So I felt foolish, but I was also very excited, and I thought, oh my goodness. So the next year, it was the Interlochen Arts Camp, a full 8 weeks of instruction and orchestral playing, and it was fantastic. From there on, a year and a half later, I took the plunge and applied at the Interlochen Arts Academy. Unbeknownst to my father, I did it without his knowledge and was accepted. And once we received information on what a scholarship package would include, of course, I had to have the conversation with him about the possibility of going to Interlochen and having his financial information for financial aid. And
Sure.
And we were able to make it happen. So I went there for 2 years, my senior year and a postgraduate year. So I wasn't quite ready to leave Northern Michigan and to leave the Interlochen experience. So between my private teacher, Derek Weller, and my father, we had an evening discussion where it turned out to be the best decision for me to stay another year.
That's exciting. Those are big decisions and hard decisions, and when they're right, you know it, and it feels right. And then, my goodness sakes, did you make a change? You took the plunge to the Juilliard School right in the middle of New York City. So how did that come to be?
It was an organization, a conservatory on the list of schools that most of my fellow colleagues at Interlochen were applying to. It just happened to be the only audition that I went to on my own. I did the circuit of auditions with my father, traveled to Boston, to Baltimore, to Lansing at Michigan State. But this one, I flew out to New York and stayed with some of my fellow colleagues from Interlochen at a hotel on the Upper West Side. And the interesting part about that audition is that I flew to New York without a bass. And the week leading up to the audition, I made a phone call to the school asking if it would be possible to borrow a bass. Now, as we all know, not auditioning on your instrument is really not a good idea.
No, how? Oh my gosh.
And in my mind, I thought the reality, the potential of me getting in there, and as musicians, we're all our worst critics. I thought, you know what? I'm just going to go and have fun with this. Whatever instrument I get that I get to borrow will be it, and I'll play my best, and we'll see how things turn out.
Sure.
So when I arrived at the school, I went to the office where they told me to go and pick up the bass, and the gentleman I spoke with had gone on vacation and no one knew about it, and there was nothing they could do for me. So at that point I thought,
I flew all the way here.
All the way here, if I'm not going to audition, great, that's fine. New York is fabulous. At least I was able to come on this trip. Well, a coworker of this gentleman was able to work his magic, and they got me a bass 20 minutes before my audition.
You didn't even have time to warm up on it.
So I grabbed the bass. They had a stool for me to borrow. I brought my own bow, and I went into a practice room and just played scales. So went into the audition and played Bach, the Kusevitsky concerto, and a few other items from orchestral excerpts. And I thought, you know what? I played pretty darn well in this instrument that I've never played on.
You never know, yeah.
And I left the audition and thought, well, that was a great experience.
Right.
And I'll just leave it at that. Well, come April 1st, I received communication in the mail. I remember walking out to the mailbox, and it was a thick envelope. And the first thing I thought was, oh my goodness, my audition was so terrible that they just sent everything back to me, all the materials that I sent. Now, this is during the day where you sent lots of paperwork to apply for a college. Now everything's online and
Right.
got to
Oh,
be much easier today. But sure enough, it was an acceptance letter, and
right.
it was,
That's
it was a palatable offer. So that began my tenure at Juilliard as a
yeah.
student.
So you received both your bachelor's and your master's at the Juilliard School in double bass performance. But then something else happened. And how was it that you spent another 12 years or so at the Juilliard School?
Well, it was only 2 years actually beyond my
Oh,
studies, my undergrad, and my master's.
okay.
Um, during well, we'll put it this way: living in New York is expensive, and so students at Juilliard had the opportunity for work study, which is essentially positions throughout the campus for you to make money. So I got a job in the Office of Public, oh my gosh, what was it called at the time? It was Development and Public Affairs. And under that umbrella was the Office of Alumni Relations. So I began as a work study in that office, making alumni membership cards, doing address returns,
Right,
just
right.
the basics of a development and engagement office. So I learned the tricks of the trade of engagement and stewardship of individuals. And from there, uh, sort of ignited a career in the world of development and alumni engagement. So having done that for 2 years after my graduation from my master's, it was time to um, maybe move on to something a little more challenging. Well, uh, Interlochen Center for the Arts at that time had a position available to run the alumni organization.
Oh,
And that turned out to be the perfect time for me to come back to Northern Michigan to continue my career in the alumni relations world.
that is incredible. And what a interesting outlet or interesting thing for you. I mean, you're deep in the performance world, of course, but now you have an experience of kind of like what life is like on the other side of the stage. And there are a lot of things going on that help make organizations successful. I'm sure you know, and you came back and assumed that role in Interlaken, but of course you were still playing. And I think that you uh, became principal bass with Traverse Symphony Orchestra, didn't you?
I did. So returning to Michigan in the spring of 2006 to assume the role of Director of Alumni Engagement also happened to be at the time that the principal double bassist of the Traverse Symphony Orchestra was moving to Pittsburgh. So the TSO held auditions for the principal position, which I won in the fall of 2006.
That's great. Oh, that's great. And I know that some years after that, you began playing for Great Lakes Chamber Orchestra. We're very happy to have you and to say that. I know that you worked on staff for a while at Traverse Symphony Orchestra as they were going through some changes.
Yes. So after about 7.5 years as alumni director for Interlochen, I shifted my efforts to the more fundraising side of advancement and joined the Traverse Symphony Orchestra as their annual campaign manager. So overseeing the fundraising efforts for the organization. And then only a short year later, I assumed the role of operations manager in addition to the role of annual campaign. So I
Very,
was working sort of two full-time jobs.
Gary, that's insane. Yeah.
Yeah, it was my mid 30s, and I figured, why not? Let's have an insane life. So I did that for a few years, and then became full-time director of development. We were raising money enough for me to assume that role full-time. And up until 2018, I was in that position, and then our executive director at the time departed. And I then assumed the role of the interim executive director for about a year and a half until we found Kedrick Merwin from Interlochen to come in.
Interlocking, we're doing a swap here.
Yes, yes. And then it was time for a new challenge, a change, and this opportunity to oversee Interlochen College of Creative Arts, which is the adult lifelong learning arm of Interlochen Center for the Arts, came along, which I joined in November of 2019. So we're coming up on almost a year in my new position with Interlochen Center for the Arts.
That's exciting and something different for you.
Very much so. So I'm now in program curriculum development for both in-person and online learning opportunities for adults.
Right, right. So you took this on in November, and lo and behold, a few months later, the world is turned upside down. So you were pretty busy with other staff members in developing online programming.
Correct. Well, within my department, we had a whole suite of in-person offerings for the summer of 2020. And once COVID came into our lives and sort of flipped things on their head, we had to assess which programs could successfully pivot to an online platform.
Sure.
And out of roughly 20 programs for the summer, we moved seven to nine programs to an online platform. And in the end, they were quite successful. Uh, what we did find out is, we opened our registration in January. We had upwards of 450 individuals registered for various courses. We, of course, due to the situation of COVID-19, offered 100% refunds. And for the most part, for those programs that we pivoted to online, we were able to retain those registrants. But what also happened is that we brought on a lot of brand new people. So by offering online courses, we were able to engage people that may not have the wherewithal to come to Interlochen, either physically or financially. And so the engagement opportunity with online learning expanded for Interlochen College of Creative Arts. So we will be offering more online courses this coming winter, a time where people really don't have the opportunity to be outdoors and to breathe in the fresh air,
Sure.
especially those in the upper Midwest. And then, of course, moving into next summer, Interlochen Center for the Arts is planning for in-person camp for students grades 2 through 12, as well as our as well as our adult programs. And of course, we will monitor the situation with COVID-19 in the event that we have to say that that's not going to work this year, and we would pivot to online. And the camp in 2020 did pivot to an online offering, a 3-week-long program called Interlochen Online, and it was incredibly successful. We thought maybe we would engage 500 kids, but in the end, we engaged 1,400.
Are you kidding? That is amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing. With lecture style or individual instruction, instrument instruction,
So
or
it's a combination of classes, private lesson, industry seminars, and collaboration. The camp itself on the music side ended with a production of Les Préludes, Franz Liszt Les Préludes, which is done traditionally at the end of each summer, but by students submitting their part to the Les Préludes in a file. Our incredible Interlochen Presents team was able to collectively put those all together to create one orchestra
wow, wow,
virtually.
that's huge, huge number of hours. Yeah.
Oh, huge, gigantic. I can't even begin to conceptualize the intricacies and um, all that would go along with that.
Right, right. Well, it is an interesting world and unprecedented, the word that we hear over and over. But I think that many arts organizations and certainly symphony orchestras and Interlochen too, we're realizing that this whole online segment of what we do is going to be here with us, I think, forever. And as you've experienced, that's incredible, 1,400. So that your outreach is tremendously effective via online. Yeah, it's different, but you certainly had success with that. And I know many symphony orchestras are uh, working and presenting online programs, a variety of online programs. And when we are live again and on the concert stage, there still is going to be a portion of what we do that is going to be available online, whether it's video or whatever. It's just a different time, isn't it, Gary?
It sure is. And from the aspect of the perspective of the artist and the consumer, there is opportunity online to enjoy the arts, and to be a supporter of the arts too. I think that people should not people should enjoy free content, absolutely, but also consider that artists and organizations do need funding and support, even to create online content.
Yes, yes, yes. That is for sure, to keep things running and stay viable and an interesting and wonderful, music. We have so much to give, especially in a time like this, don't we, Gary? With helping and healing and calming, and music does so much.
It sure does, absolutely. And I can't wait to get back up to the Petoskey, Charlevoix, Harbor Springs area to play for everyone again. And I hope that is sooner than later.
Yes, well, we do too. And as we look forward, we have developed 3 online programs, and I hope you as an audience have been enjoying them for the past months. We have Tuesday Talks, here we are. We have GLCO in Concert, which is rebroadcasting recorded performances or excerpts of recorded performances. And then we have Little Bay Concerts, which are live performances in living rooms outside, where a small handful of musicians come together and perform. And we were able to put those up online. So that's exciting. We're working now to develop an educational arm to our online programming. So we are looking forward to, as Gary and I have been talking about, to keep the online programming robust. But we are also considering how we might safely restart in-person live performances. So I stay tuned, as they say, and watch for announcements as we are able to work through some of the issues and challenges to restarting again safely. And Gary, I'm so happy for you that you have found yet again another hat to wear and are able to obviously share your incredible talents, both on stage and on the other side of the stage, with organizations like Great Lakes Chamber Orchestra, Traverse Symphony Orchestra, and Interlochen.
Well, it keeps me young.
Exactly. And I know as an artist, well, we are all so looking forward to sharing in-person performance again, from an artist perspective and from an audience perspective too. I think we both are missing that interaction so much.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Um, just this last year, I was able to invest in a new instrument. So this is the an instrument that I will have forever. I had a wonderful German bass from 1996, and I still own this instrument, although I'm having it overhauled in Grand Rapids. But I was able to acquire a double bass, also German. It's a 160-year-old instrument that has been performed in the Metropolitan Opera, the Chicago Lyric Orchestra, where it was owned by a player for about 20 years. And I purchased it from a gentleman in the Detroit Symphony about a year and a half ago. So I've been enjoying the instrument immensely and have played it up at the Great Lakes Chamber Orchestra as well as the Traverse Symphony Orchestra, but I'm ready to play it more.
Okay, more. Can you share maybe briefly with us what is the significance of having an older instrument like that?
So the wood, usually older instruments are made from old growth trees. So tighter rings, allowing for sound vibrations to be much more rich. Some newer instruments are maybe made from trees that are not that old. And so it really matters for sound vibration and development of the wood. Uh, Also, just the fact that of age, this instrument has been ringing for over 160 years. And, of course, you can tune it by adjusting the sound post or moving the bridge slightly. But essentially, it develops its own hues and timbre and rich tones. So being able to acquire an instrument with a history, uh, makes it that much more enjoyable to play.
Wow, it has its groove. And,
Yeah.
and we're able to hear that too. And like you say, in the richness and the quality of the tone. Well, I'm happy for you. Congratulations on that. I'm sure these instruments don't come around too often.
They don't, and, to be able to have a higher quality instrument, just it makes playing that much more enjoyable.
Well, we can't wait to have you back on the stage with the orchestra and see you again in person. And Gary, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day and being my guest on Tuesday Talks. And I want to thank all of you out there for joining us again this week. And stay safe, and thank you for all the support that you give to the orchestra. It means a great deal always, and certainly at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.